By the end of this video, you are going to know everything about a sim racing PC, and you're also going to know where to save money when building or buying them. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to run through the components here and those secrets. So we're going to start with the motherboard, and the motherboard is this black rectangle you can see here. Now for this motherboard here, I bought an Asus XA70-E motherboard. They always come with the most stupid names, and you can save a lot of money here. Now the reason I bought an X870E is for two reasons really. Firstly, I wanted to use an AMD CPU, which we'll get onto. And secondly, I wanted to have a load of USB ports because I'm going to be plugging in cameras like this camera I'm using right now, microphones, other cameras, wheelbases, pedals, lights, everything. I'm plugging a load of stuff in. So that's why I wanted to get this particular motherboard. Now, for most sim racers, you don't need that many ports. You can use USB hubs. Interestingly, a lot of wheels actually recommend that you use a powered USB hub. So you're not really required to get some beastly motherboard with a million different ports. I would say it's very important to understand what CPU you're going to use, and we're going to get into that. And also we're going to get into storage. And I think you also want to have a couple of NVMe M2 SSD slots, but we'll get into that later. So let's talk about CPU now. So for this CPU, I bought a AMD 9900X CPU. And again, the reason for me is that I do a lot of productivity on this PC. So I'm recording a lot of different camera angles and running different programs. But for sim racing, you can save money. So you can get an older generation AMD X3D CPU. Anything with X3D is really good for gaming and sim racing by AMD. I paid about £400 for the CPU, and I paid about £500 for the motherboard, by the way. So I spent £900 on these two components. The CPU is just behind here. You can spend a couple of $100s on the motherboard and a couple of $100, but probably more than you spend on the motherboard on your CPU. I wouldn't buy a secondhand CPU or motherboard. There are other components you can get secondhand, but I wouldn't get those secondhand. You probably want to get them new and under warranty, but you can get slightly older generations. Just be super careful when you're buying your motherboard and your CPU. They have to be the same generation. Like, you can't use a brand new AMD CPU on an older generation motherboard. Like, the socket has to fit. So you need to get that compatibility right. You can always check in the comments here or in our Discord about that. So once you've got your CPU and your motherboard, start thinking about the RAM. Again, it can save loads of money here. You can see here I've got 4 sticks of RAM. Now this is a bit misleading because only 2 of them are actual sticks of RAM. 2 of them are just empty and have lights. So it kind of makes it look like I have 4 sticks, but I actually only have 2 sticks. The most important thing here is the amount of memory. To me, that's more important than the speed. Make sure you get 32 gigabytes. Definitely do not buy 8 gigabytes. Don't buy 8 gigabytes in a pre-built or doing it yourself. And also, I would say don't get 16. I think 16 is going to become outdated for sim racing. Load of new sim racing titles coming in the market. You want to push everything. I would say get 32 gigabytes. So here I actually have 64 gigabytes. This is provided by Corsair, but normally I would go out and buy 32 gigabytes. And your RAM goes in here, it slots in. You can have different speeds of RAM. They go up like different megahertz. A lot of people aren't even going to configure that properly in the BIOS. So I would say don't worry too much about speed. Make sure you get 32 gigabytes. So you've got your RAM, you've got your CPU, you've got your motherboard. We now need to cool the CPU because your CPU is essentially limited by how efficiently it can be cooled, interestingly. That's how the equation sort of works. We'll get onto other parts of it. And here I have a liquid cooler with a screen. Yeah, you can save a lot of money here. So this was provided by Corsair. It's a really nice liquid CPU cooler. I've got this RGB stuff here. You can see the temperature of the CPU is chilling at 34 degrees and it goes into this radiator. At this point, there's a lot of knowledgeable sim racing PC enthusiasts in the comments saying, oh, your cables are all wrong here. Your pipes are all wrong because it's going up and there's going to be bubbles. I've spoken with Corsair. I've spoken with ASETEK, who literally invented the patent for this thing for years and years and years. They say it's okay, so maybe it's okay, maybe it isn't. But anyway, liquid cooled, so basically there's liquid in these pipes. It goes here, it goes into the radiator cools it, the cool liquid comes down here, cools the CPU, as liquid heats, goes back up here, cycle continues. This is the radiator here, and I'll talk a little bit about fans as well. You've got your radiator, and you've also got fans. The way this works is you want to exhaust air out of the case, and to do that you need to draw air in somewhere and exhaust it somewhere else. What you definitely don't want to do is be blowing outside air, all outside air into your case. That's not good, and you don't want to be not drawing it in somewhere as well. So you want to have your fan set up, maybe they're drawing in here and then kind of going out here, and you can imagine a nice visualization. So that's how your fans and radiator work. Obviously you can save a huge amount of money by not getting RGB. So you just get the versions that have RGB and you're going to save cash. And also fans you can get generally super cheap. So we've kind of done all of this bit. Okay, let's go on to around here, because now I'm going to go on to storage. So for storage, I strongly recommend you get an NVMe SSD. NVMe SSDs are very shallow sticks that you basically clip in. Now, I'm very lucky here. Lexar gifted me a NM790 4TB SSD, so big thanks to Lexar. 4TB NVMe SSD is kind of all you need. So, you know, definitely get the NVMe, because you don't want to be plugging in noisy, slow hard drives with platters that are just going to click and annoy you and be slow. This is the fastest way. And if you want to save some money, what I would do is start with a smaller SSD, start with a smaller 1TB or 2TB, which is going to be cheaper. Make sure your motherboard has at least one extra slot, and then as you go, you can add later a bigger SSD to expand it. So you can kind of defer the cost there. So install one to get going, then you're installing everything to see your sim racing game should load really quickly. So definitely get that. Now, before we get onto graphics card, because the eagle-eyed amongst you may have spotted something in the corner here, so put a glasses emoji in the comments if you'd spotted that. Be honest. Before that, we're going to get onto what's under here, which is the power supply, the PSU. This is really important. So the power supply powers everything. They are rated for a certain wattage. So what you need to do is you need to add up basically your CPU, how much your graphics card is going to use, add some tolerance for everything else, and then get a PSU that's at least going to cover that. Now, I really wouldn't cut this fine. I would give yourself a decent amount of headroom. That's going to be good for upgrading as well. So 750, 800, 900, this is a 1000 watt PSU. They do have different ratings as well, like bronze, silver, gold, platinum. So you can save a bit of money here, but I genuinely wouldn't compromise too much actually on the PSU. Now let's go on to the graphics card, because here I've got a RTX 4060 Ti graphics card. Now this graphics card is not very good, and the main reason for that is it only has 8 GB of video VRAM, so video random access memory. That's just not enough for sim racing these days. Honestly, that's not enough. Do not buy a graphics card unless you're getting at least 12 or 16 GB of VRAM. That should be really a standard in 2025, 2026. Do not go out and buy an old graphics card that has 8 GB. You're just not going to have a good experience. Your games are just going to struggle. So this one has 8 GB. That's why I went out and bought this one here, 5070 Ti. And I'm just debating whether to actually go with that one and put it in, or whether I should wait for something else to come out. Now, if you want to save a bit of money here, you see, even though these are both NVIDIA GPUs, AMD GPUs these days tend to be a bit cheaper for the same amount of VRAM. They tend to basically come with more VRAM. So have a look at the AMD GPUs. Now GPUs, I would say, unlike the CPUs, the use market is quite solid for these. So I've bought and sold GPUs before, secondhand. So you can look into buying a secondhand one as well. Just make sure you're looking at that VRAM. For me as a streamer, having these NVIDIA ones is actually great, because they come with different encoding chips that allow me to record this video in lots of different camera angles and which is pretty cool. So you've got that. Now, once you've got all of those components I just talked about, you'll also need a case, and then there's something else I need to do. So the case, again, you can save a load of money. Cases come in different sizes, like ATX, micro ATX, etc. Make sure your motherboard and case are the same size. This case is from Corsair. They gifted this to me, and you can see that it has a glass front to it. That's nice. You don't need that. You can save money by just getting one that doesn't have a glass front. You can save a lot of money on the case. The cases also come with their own USB power button here. I'm not going to press it because the whole video will turn off, which you have to connect into the motherboard. You don't necessarily need that as well. So you can save a load of money on the case. And if you want to save money, that's a really good place to do it. So you can save money on the case as well. Now, once you've got everything here, it all needs to plug in. So you can see lots of cables around the place. Cables there, cables here, cables here, cables here, everything going into the motherboard. So you need to clip everything in. Now, interestingly, you might not know this from this angle, and no one else is going to tell you about it, but basically all of these cables get stuffed around the back into like your power supply or just hidden there. I really don't like that about PC building. I think there should be more space on the back. My cable management is not good generally, you've seen on the channel, let's be honest. So the back of that is just like an absolute, it's like a war zone. I really don't like it, but just so you understand, that's where all the cables go. They get stuffed around the back. Now, because Corsair gave me this IQ compatible stuff, you can use IQ Link here, which is some of these cables. That's a lot simpler to do because you just plug them into one box. That's why this PC kind of looks quite neat. So that's a genuine game changer there on the IQ software as well, on the IQ hardware. So there we go, that's the PC. So this PC has some expensive components in it that are kind of completely optional, and I use to create content for you guys and girls. So if you enjoy this, please subscribe, leave a like, leave a comment as well. But you don't need a lot of those features. So if you want to go sim racing, let me break it down. Get a graphics card that has 12 or 16 gigabytes of RAM. Get an older generation X3D CPU. Get a motherboard that will basically handle that. You don't need much else. Get 32 gigabytes of non-RGB RAM, don't worry too much about the speed. Get non-RGB fans in here, make sure that you set them up correctly. Start with a 1 terabyte NVMe SSD, put it in like a fairly anonymous case. Get a PSU that's proper, like don't skimp on the PSU, and then you're good to go, and you're going to be saving a lot of money over some of the components that I decided to buy here. So again, really hope you find that helpful. Big thanks to all the companies that helped me out with putting this together as well, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.